Welcome once again, dear students, to the Rayat Online School Education, and this is our 22nd lecture of biology and the third lecture from human health and diseases. Now, in previous two lectures, we have studied the terminology immunity, the various cells involved in the immunity, and the structure of antibody. And in this third lecture, we are going to study some common human diseases. Now let's start. Now before starting the lecture, we should know what is the meaning of disease. Now the disease is nothing but the condition of disturbed or deranged functioning of one or more organs or organ systems of the body, caused due to infections, defective diet, or heredity. Now there are two types of diseases. These two types are, the first type is congenital diseases and the second type is acquired diseases. Now what is the meaning of congenital diseases? The congenital diseases are present from birth and they may be caused by genetic abnormality or metabolic disorders. They may have permanent and very practically incurable nature. Now, the second type of diseases are acquired diseases. They develop after the birth of the individual, and it is again subdivided into two types. The first type is communicable or infectious diseases, and the second type is non-communicable or non-infectious diseases. Now we will move step by step. Now what are the communicable or infectious diseases? The diseases which are transmitted from infected person to another healthy person, either directly or indirectly, they are called as communicable or infectious disease. I will explain again. The diseases which are transmitted from the infected person, which is suffering from the disease, to another healthy person, either directly or indirectly, they are called as communicable or infectious diseases. Now this was about the communicable disease. Now the second type in this is non-communicable or non-infectious diseases. Now these diseases, they cannot be transmitted from infected person to another healthy one, either directly or indirectly. This is called as non-communicable or non-infectious disease. Now we will move towards the communicable diseases, which are, what is the causative agents? The communicable diseases, they are caused by various pathogens, and all the diseases or the disease causing organisms, they are called as pathogens. And these pathogens are viruses, bacteria, fungi, helminthes or worms, etc. Now these agents, infectious agents, they cause the disease to the healthy persons. Now we will move forward. The parasites, they are of two categories, or they are of two types. Now which are these parasites? These parasites are of two types or two categories. Firstly, the ectoparasites. The ectoparasites, the example here is the bedbug. Now what are ectoparasites? Ecto, as the name suggests, they live on the body surface of the host or the victim. It is called as ectoparasite. That means they does not enter inside the body. Now the second type is the endoparasite. Endoparasite, example here is Plasmodium. It is a protozoan endoparasite of the mosquito. Mosquito is the vector. Now here the terminology vector. Vector is the animal or the agency through which the disease causing organisms, they are carried. It is called as vector. Now we are going to study in detail in the malaria about the Plasmodium and the mosquito. vector and human beings. Now these endoparasites, they live inside the body of the victim or the healthy person and make that person sick. Now these are the two types of the parasites, ectoparasites and endoparasites. Now we will move forward. Now the first disease from our human health and diseases, in common human diseases, the first disease is malaria. Now this malaria, as told you earlier, it is a vector-borne disease, and the vector is mosquito, and the female Anopheles mosquito, borne infectious disease, and it is caused by a protist known as Plasmodium. And there are 4 species of Plasmodium which are responsible for the formation of the disease. Now which are those species? Now the first species is the Plasmodium vivax, the second species is Plasmodium ovale, the third species is Plasmodium malariae, and the fourth species is Plasmodium falciparum. Now we will move towards the disease malaria. Now there are, as discussed earlier, there are 4 species of Plasmodium vivax, and how they cause the disease malaria, what is the incubation period, what are the patterns of high fever, or what are the symptoms. Now before going to study the species of Plasmodium, incubation period and patterns of high fever, we should know what is the meaning of incubation period. Now when the incubation period terminology is used, it means that it is the time interval from the invasion of a pathogen to the development of clinical manifestations. It means since the symptoms occur, it is known as incubation period. It means when the vector or the pathogen enters inside the body and it causes disease, and it is the time interval to the symptoms of the disease, it is called as incubation period. So the terminology is used as incubation period. Now we will move by step. Now what is the name of the species? This is the Plasmodium vivax, and the incubation period for the malaria or for this disease is 14 days, and the patterns of high fever, it is having high fever after 48-hour interval. Now the interval in between the fever is near about 48 hours. The second species, the Plasmodium malariae, it is having the incubation period of 28 days. It shows high fever after 72 hours of interval. The third species is Plasmodium ovale, having incubation period of 17 days and showing high fever after 48 hours of interval. And the fourth species, which is very much dangerous and which develops the fatal malaria, it is Plasmodium falciparum, and the incubation period is of 12 days and it shows high fever at irregular intervals between 22 to 48 hours. And this was about the 4 species. Now these species of Plasmodiums, they are often asked to the multiple choice questions, and you have to study and remember those. Next, the symptoms of malaria. Now what are the symptoms of malaria? Now in these 2 diagrams we are able to see various symptoms of the malaria. Now here, what are the common symptoms of malaria? The first is cough, body ache, sweat, then nausea and vomiting, colds and sweats, fever, headache and diarrhea. These are the common symptoms of malaria. And in this diagram, you are able to see the headache in the central region of the body or in the head region, then the chills and sweating, followed by the high fever, dry cough, then in some cases the spleen enlargement, the nausea and vomiting also occurs, body pain or back pain occurs, the muscular fatigue and pain in the body, and the systemic fever or the high fever, which is after the sweating and chills. These are the common symptoms of malaria. The stages in the life cycle of the Plasmodium in mosquito and human. As I have told you earlier, the female Anopheles mosquito is the vector and the human is the final host of the malaria, and the two stages of life cycle, they are carried out in the vector and in the body of the human being. That means in the body of the female Anopheles mosquito and in the body of human being. Now what is this life cycle, and we are going to see by this diagram. Now this is the skin, or this is the human skin barrier in the life cycle of mosquito, life cycle of Plasmodium in the body of mosquito and in the human being. Now when, as seen in the diagram, the mosquito which is having the sporozoid state in the salivary gland of the mosquito bites to the healthy person, the parasite or the Plasmodium, it enters in the sporozoid stage inside the body of the human being, breaking the human skin barrier inside the human body. Now these sporozoids, they enter inside the hepatic cells, and this stage is called as the hepatic dormancy, and the stage is called as hypnozoid stage. And here this is the hepatic cell as seen in the diagram, and the sporozoids, they enter inside the healthy hepatic cells, and that stage is called as hypnozoid. And after that, the mature scission is formed and it bursts and it leaves merozoids. Now the stage is called as merozoids. Now these merozoids, they enter inside the erythrocytes, and in a cyclic manner, they develop, and now the stage which is in the erythrocytes, it is in the erythrocytic scission stage. And here the erythrocytes again rupture, and the ruptured erythrocytes, they give rise to newly developed stage, and the newly infected erythrocytes again move forward, and this stage is called as gametocyte. And again, when the female Anopheles mosquito bites the infected person, through the proboscis of the female Anopheles mosquito, these gametocytes, or that stage of the Plasmodium, enters inside the body of the mosquito. Now here the stages in the human body is completed, and after the entry of that Plasmodium inside the body of mosquito, that stage is called as microgamete, and again it develops and forms into the macrogamete, and it develops a zygote here. And in the midgut of the mosquito, here it is shown in the diagram, these Plasmodium, they develop into the ookinete and oocyst, and the oocyst again burst, and the sporozoids, they are transferred to the salivary gland of the female Anopheles mosquito, and this cycle in the mosquito is completed. Again that female mosquito bites to a healthy person, and this entire cycle is carried out. Now these are the stages in the life cycle of Plasmodium in the body of mosquito and human. I will again want to tell you here, the mosquito is the vector and the human being is the ultimate victim, or the host, secondary host, or the victim in the malaria. Now we will move forward. Now the mode of transmission, as shown in the diagram, the Plasmodium is transmitted from one person to other through an insect vector, female Anopheles mosquito. I have shown you in the diagram. When infected female Anopheles sucks the human blood, it may transfer sporozoids to human circulation. The sporozoids reproduce asexually through fission, and that process is called as schizogony in the liver cells or erythrocytes. The cells formed are now called as merozoites. Remember this terminology. The cells which are infected, they are called as merozoites. The cells formed within erythrocytes function as gametocytes, and that process is called as gamogony. I will tell you again, that process or that stage is called as gamogony. And besides, it forms gametocytes within the erythrocytes. It is again also termed as gamogony. The gametocytes, if taken up by female Anopheles mosquito, the fertilization occurs in its gut, the gut of the female Anopheles mosquito. The diploid zygote is formed, which transforms into oocyst, as shown in the diagram, and the oocyst forms large number of haploid sporozoites through meiosis, and that stage is called as, or that process is called as sporogony. And these sporozoites migrate to salivary glands and are ready to infect new human hosts. Now this is the mode of transmission we have shown in the previous slide, in the previous diagram. Now we will move forward. The diagnosis and treatment of the malaria. Now firstly, the diagnosis. The diagnosis, nowadays there are various diagnostic methods which are applied for the diagnosis of malaria. The diagnosis, the basic diagnosis is done by the microscopic study of blood smear. Now here a puncture is made in the finger of the infected person, and a blood smear is made, and the microscopic study is carried out in the laboratory. And when the Plasmodium vivax is visible inside the blood of the infected person, we can say that the person is suffering from the malaria. Now besides this microscopic study, other rapid diagnostic tests based on nucleic acid amplification techniques, they are also used. And now these are the new techniques which are invented by the scientists, and these techniques are nowadays used. These techniques are very rapid and they give a very precise effect and the precise result. Now the treatment of malaria. The treatment of malaria includes artemisinin based combination therapies. Now there are various techniques and treatments which are used to cure the malaria. They are also called as ACTs. The WHO, the World Health Organization, has recommended 5 different ACTs, which includes various combinations of artesunate, sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine, etc. And in addition, quinone is also used to treat the malaria. Now this was about the diagnosis and treatment of the malaria. The prevention and control of malaria. How the malaria can be prevented and controlled. The prevention of mosquito bite by using mosquito nets and insect repellents. The mosquito nets, oftenly the mosquito nets are used throughout the world for the prevention of mosquito bites, so that the mosquito cannot enter where the healthy person is sleeping. So that mosquito nets, they are used. And so also the insect repellents, just we use good night, Mortein, and other creams for the for repelling the mosquito. These insect repellents, they are also used in the prevention of mosquito bite. Now the second control measure is the spraying of insecticides and draining the stagnant water where the mosquitoes lay eggs. Now there are various diseases besides the malaria, and the main breeding ground for the mosquitoes of all types is the stagnant water. If there is stagnant water inside the vicinity of the population, that stagnant water is a breeding ground, and this stagnant water should be drained, and the various insecticides, they should be sprayed there, and the mosquito eggs, they must be destroyed. Now the spraying of insecticide and draining of stagnant water where the mosquito lay their eggs. Now the third preventive and control measure of the mosquito is the mosquito larvae can be controlled by using Gambusia freshwater fish. Now this is the biocontrol mechanism or the biocontrol agent. This Gambusia freshwater fish, they eat the larvae of the mosquito, and since the larvae they are destroyed, the mature mosquitoes cannot be developed. Now these were about the prevention and control of the malaria. Now we will move towards now this is a diagrammatic representation about the infection, and the infection in this diagram, the infected mosquito, it bites, the cyclic changes inside the stages of malaria are seen. Okay, we will move towards the next disease, that is amoebiasis. The amoebiasis is also known as amoebic dysentery, and this amoebiasis is a common infection of human gastrointestinal tract, and the amoebiasis is caused by a protist parasite, and the name of this protist parasite is Entamoeba histolytica. I will show you the life cycle of Entamoeba histolytica, and this amoebiasis is a common disease, common diarrhea causing disease in the Indian population. Now this is the life cycle of Entamoeba histolytica. As we have discussed about the life cycle of Plasmodium vivax in the malaria, this is the this is the Entamoeba histolytica. It is showing the pseudopodium, showing endoplasm, ectoplasm, and it is showing ingested RBCs. The nucleus is seen. Then that stage is called as tropozoid. This stage is called as tropozoid. So I am showing you by the arrow. Now it divides by the binary fission, and it is developed into the pre-cystic form, and these pre-cystic forms show again the formation of cyst, or it forms to the stage of cyst, and it shows the development of chromatid bodies. Then it is again developed into the binucleate cyst, and again into the quadranucleate cyst. It shows the endoplasm, the nucleus, and there is glycogen vacuoles inside the body of the quadranucleate cyst, and it shows the quadranucleate body. And again this cystic stage, it gives rise to excystment through the cyst wall, and the metacystic amoeba, it is developed. Again it shows the division of the asexual reproduction, and amoebicules, they are formed, and they are again repeating this life cycle. And this amoeba, when it enters inside the healthy body of the human, it causes the disease, we called it as amoebiasis. Again, what are the signs and symptoms of the amoebiasis? Now the first symptom of the amoebiasis is the development of diarrhea, flatulence, and stool with mucus and associated abdominal pains. We call them as cramps. The severe abdominal pains or cramps, they are observed in the patient, as well as diarrhea and flatulence, and stool with mucus is seen. And the passing of blood with stool in severe cases is also seen. And hepatomegaly, it means the enlargement of the liver, is also seen in some cases. Now what is the mode of transmission? The mode of transmission of the amoebiasis is the feco-oral route. Through the feco-oral route, the amoeba enters the body of the healthy person. Now through this feco-oral route, how the amoeba enters inside the body, Entamoeba histolytica, eating with dirty hands. If the person or the people eat with the dirty hands, and if they take the contaminated food and water, the Entamoeba histolytica enters inside the healthy human body and it shows its symptoms, and it leads to the stage we called it as amoebiasis. That disease is called as amoebiasis. Now we will move towards the next point. Now what is the diagnosis and treatment? Now the diagnosis of amoebiasis is made through microscopic examination of the stool sample. Here the stool sample of the patient is taken and it is seen under the microscope and the parasite is observed. Now this is about the diagnosis. Now the second point is the treatment. Amoebiasis is treated by the use of metronidazole and tinidazole. Now these are the drugs or the chemical agents which are used for the treatment of amoebiasis. They can destroy the entamoeba histolytica in the digestive tract as well as other tissues. This entamoeba histolytica not only enters inside the digestive tract, it may enter in the other tissues also, and these drugs, metronidazole and tinidazole, they destroy the entamoeba histolytica, and in this way the treatment of the amoebiasis is carried out. Now the prevention and control of the amoebiasis. Now the best hygienic practices, they are must in the amoebiasis. Firstly, wash hands with hot water and soap after using toilets and changing babies' diapers. Now the hygiene is must. Always drink boiled water, otherwise water must be chlorinated and filtered. Avoid eating unhygienic food. The unhygienic food, if you eat that unhygienic food, there is possibility of infection, and the contaminated water is also the causative agent for the amoebiasis. Then third, the vegetables must be properly washed and cooked. The vegetables which you brought from the market, they should be properly washed and cooked. And the fourth and the most important is the proper sanitary facilities, including sewage disposal, help in the prevention. Now these are the 4 points in the prevention and control of the amoebiasis, and the hygienic practices, they help much to prevent the amoebiasis. Now this was about the 2 diseases we have studied today. The first is malaria and the second is amoebiasis. Now thank you all of you. We will stop here and we will meet you in the next lecture. Thank you all of you.